Hi, I'm back with Chapter 6, Healthcare Marketing, part 2 of this week's lecture. Marketing is probably my favorite topic when it comes to healthcare management, only because I spend a lot of my time in healthcare marketing. It has really evolved over the years from, in regards to healthcare, from not really being able to advertise or market your services to providers and consumers, and being looked down upon as tacky and inappropriate if we did so, to becoming, and one other point I want to make about that, to most organizations having a department of marketing where we would go to and ask if we had a program we wanted to promote, how could they help us promote it? And then they did a few things, they worked with a development office in a nonprofit to raise money and those sorts of things, but it was a little department. Now, healthcare marketing is how the organization is organized. And we're going to hear more about that in today's chapter when we talk about holistic marketing, which involves all of the services integrated together. Okay, so now just as I'm going to go with the introduction the text uses, which is about consumers and how we access information about healthcare. I just read a statistic not long ago that something like 46% of consumers get their healthcare information from a social media app like Facebook or Twitter, which is a little bit scary because we know that the information that's on any of these social media apps may not be true. Sorry, my clock's just stopped. I had to reset it. So if consumers are getting their information that way, then what is the best way to stop that? What is the best way to change that so that they come to us as healthcare providers to get their education and information? So today's practicing managers are being challenged to, why does this do that? Sorry. Today's practicing managers are being challenged to operate in a very complex data-driven environment that also includes financial relevance and dynamic healthcare markets while supporting the goals and objectives that you've set out with their strategic plan, your mission, vision, values. The current healthcare manager needs to rely on their fundamental market knowledge and rethink their assumptions, ask tough questions, challenge the institution's positions, look at their brands and their norms, and force fresh dialogue when it comes to marketing. In the past, and I experienced this myself, marketing was not viewed as important. It was viewed as sort of an extra. And if you had a marketing department and you felt you're passionate about it, and you felt like you needed to get out there and talk to consumers, you had a lot of administrators and healthcare organizations and physicians, for that matter, who would give you a lot of pushback and say, oh, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that because it's not, what's the word I want to use? It's tacky. It's just not right to advertise medical care. We need to step back from that. Few professionals had experience or expertise in healthcare marketing, so they didn't really know what they were doing or what they would do with it. The outcomes and return on investment were very, very hard to identify. We didn't have social media. We didn't have data collection. If we developed an education program on how to do a breast exam, for example, and 10 people came and we reported to our manager or supervisor, whoever it was, and said, look, we got these 10 people. And then they would say, well, then what else? What else do we know? Did they sign up for surgery? Did you give them the name of a doctor? What did you do? Because there was no technology to really collect it. So we collected things on paper and we put those patients on a mailing list, and then we would send them mailings, and we would send them the hospital newspaper, which was at that time, it was a magazine called The Dialogue. We would send that to them. We would send out an education pamphlet. because basically that was the kind of marketing we did. Education programs, which we now call content marketing, and other events that would bring people to the organization to let them know about the services that we had. We would sometimes go to doctors' offices and give them brochures like OBGYNs about our labor and delivery classes and all those kinds of things. We would do some of that, but basically our hands were tied for a lot of things. When at some point we got to be able to put ads in newspapers because that's what people read, and we were able to advertise some of our education programs and some of the events that we held at the hospital to celebrate milestones and that sort of thing. Another thing that was happening with marketing at the time was people were skeptic about the value and ethics of marketing programs. Like I mentioned, there were no commercials for drugs at the time. You could not advertise any drug, but that changed in 1997 when the FDA said, okay, you can do some advertising, but here are all the parameters for it. That's why you see an advertisement for a new drug, and there's a big blurb at the end about the side effects and how you should consult with your doctor, because the FDA requires that, which most people can't even understand what they're saying, but at least they've said it and they tell you what it is. So that was where we were. Now, there are big changes because now we realize that marketing is important to gain consumer trust and to understand and to get a two-way dialogue going between us and the consumer, so that healthcare providers can see the need and provide services that are required. Healthcare is unique in regards to marketing because it's not at all like selling a product like a vehicle or a tube of toothpaste or any of those things. It's unique because it's personal care and possibly life altering. Like I've mentioned earlier, and I think several times, we take care of people's lives. We don't add devices to their bodies. We don't manufacture those devices, but we use them as tools to help improve somebody's health status. So we are an important part of we are the endpoint of where a person gets health care. And most providers are looked at as a place where a consumer goes to get help. And that's key, very key, totally different. Some types of marketing that are done for products and services is good for products and services, but while for many clinicians, particularly some physicians, still don't like it. They don't like the fact that we now look at things from a business and marketing perspective. Unfortunately, that's the way things are going these days, so it's difficult. But if we can still hang on to that clinical perspective and keep it more of a personal thing, we will be much more successful because consumers want that. Okay, some providers still view marketing activities as inappropriate. At one point, the American Medical Association actually declared that any activities for marketing were unethical. They've changed their tune since then, and they do a lot of marketing themselves. Another point about why we're different is healthcare is a unique marketplace in terms of its buyers and sellers, insurances and consumers, and other sellers are the people that provide us with products and services. And it's weak consumer driven because the consumer's healthcare is paid by insurance. So the consumer doesn't have as much control as we do over other things that we purchase. So it's on the consumer side is a little bit weak, but we can change that by continuing to provide feedback. Consumers now can also shop for prices, which is something we didn't do in the past. We weren't able to, like you can for services. So we've made some changes there. And a third major shortcoming is competition does not necessarily drive the prices of goods and services. So unlike a product that you would get, the competition can change the price, but that doesn't happen in healthcare as much. It's more the payer that makes that decision, which is the insurance or Medicare, and sometimes consumer pressure. A fourth issue is that there are many drivers of the consumptions of healthcare by their mission. Some organizations have competing priorities, such as research and education. By regulation, some organizations must offer care regardless of the economics of the service. And not-for-profit organizations may struggle with the charitable purpose versus the marketing function. So there are, a couple of things here that we bump into when we try to market our organization. The extent of marketing in the healthcare, excuse me. The extent of marketing in the healthcare organization is enormous. In 2013, in U.S. hospitals and clinics, medical centers spent $1.8 billion on media, just one aspect of marketing to attract revenue generating patients. Most astonishingly, pharmaceutical companies spent $6 billion in advertising in 2016. And I should have looked up current values, and if I have a chance, I will do that yet today and post it for you. But there's a lot more money spent than there used to be because of the strategy and the changes that are happening. So let's move on to the marketing concept. Excuse me. The marketing concept is a change in the way we look at marketing and use marketing. All industries should be following the marketing concept today. As the text states, you'll recognize when we start to talk about it, how some of the organizations you purchase from are acting this way. According to the marketing concept, an organization must create, communicate, and deliver customer value to selected target markets more effectively than competitors to achieve goals and objectives. Okay, that's the marketing concept. So we're going to create, communicate, and deliver value, which means we're going to communicate, keep the customer close, create that value, and deliver it to select target markets. We're going to do it efficiently and effectively in regards to our resources. We're not going to blanketly do a mass advertisement to everybody in the Lehigh Valley. We're going to pick specific segments and specific targets in those segments that are going to get us the most return on investment for our efforts. The next thing you need to understand is the definition of customer value. Customer value is the difference between the benefits a consumer desires and perceives from the purchase of a product, service, or idea, and the cost to acquire those benefits. So those things put together are what the consumer value is. What we perceive is what we should get and what value we should be getting. It's the difference between the benefits the consumer desires and perceives from the purchase of the product, service, idea, and the cost to acquire those benefits. So was it worth my efforts to get those benefits? And did I get the benefits I think I should have got? That's pretty much the customer value. So not only do we as marketing people and managers have to identify what we think, what the consumer says is their consumer value, we have to then make our best attempt to deliver it. The orientation of organization towards achieving customer value has migrated according to what the business world has been doing, specifically since payment and those changes in payment have become increasingly intense and different. Okay, excuse me. And a marketing-oriented business grew in popularity from the 70s to the present day, where now the focus is on customer desires, needs, and requirements, and then the company produces relevant products and services for them. So we identify what their needs and desires are, and then we attempt to develop those products and services instead of telling them, this is what we have, this is what you're going to buy, because you need it. Instead of telling them what they need, we're going to ask them what they need and then develop those services. With technology advances, the customer has clearly been the driving force behind contemporary business strategies. Now, we're going to say what a holistic organization is. And this, again, is important because it's totally different. A holistic marketing orientation is an orientation where we look at relationship marketing, customer influence products, socially responsible approaches, and digital campaigns are assimilated with traditional marketing practices with other things that we do, like direct mail, some advertising, that sort of thing, into a key word here, unified strategic marketing process. So a holistic organization unites the entire organization in their shared ideals and vision and creates an inclusive community-oriented strategy. So the marketing strategy that we mentioned here is integrated throughout the organization, and it unites the entire organization in their shared ideals and vision and creates an inclusive community-oriented strategy. So if I work in the accounting department, I know the same customer service mantra that the people in the marketing department are saying out there in the community. If I work as a nurse on the floor, I know the same customer value and service mantra that the marketing department is communicating out in the community. And we know how that is applied to our mission and our daily job, and we apply it every day. So if we have a set of values that we live by, then we understand them, we know how that fits into our particular job, and we utilize them every day. So it's an integrated philosophy that the marketing is integrated into all aspects of the organization, including the billing department, including the people out unloading the stuff from that's being delivered to the hospital, including relationships outside of the organization, which clearly would identify the consumer, but it also includes your outside stakeholders like the board, like the people whose neighborhood you live in, like the distributors and suppliers that you work with. All those people know your philosophy, your integrated strategy. So that's what holistic marketing is about. There are a couple types of marketing in healthcare: for-profit, non-for-profit, which I'm sure you understand, but there's also one that all businesses are doing now pretty much, which is cause-related marketing, where a healthcare organization partners with a cause that they provide benefits for. They do a mutual marketing together. Procter & Gamble, for instance, the manufacturer of Pampers, has partnered with UNICEF to contribute a portion of every sale pack of diapers towards the same for, and this is actually a vaccine against neonatal tetanus. The Susan G. Komen Breast Cancer Foundation's partnered up with Yoplait to raise money for breast cancer research. That's a simple example. Organizations all across the country partner up with a cause and help raise money for that cause. Often, big corporations in our area will partner up with a hospital to raise money for a specific product and service, like say the Cancer Foundation or something. Okay, this marketing approach utilizes the psychology of permission to create messaging to affect major and public health problems. I'm sorry, this is social marketing. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. Social marketing does things like the campaign to stop smoking. That was an idea that was put into, they started the ball rolling about stopping smoking in public places. It started within healthcare organizations, and then it branched out to places like restaurants, airplanes, that sort of thing. It took quite a long time. It started in the 90s and took till the 2000s to actually get fully implemented. But we now have basically stopped smoking in public places. The strategic process of this is that the emergence of a market orientation where sustainable distinct advantage is based on the ability of an organization to create, communicate, and deliver customer lifetime value more effectively than its competitors. It's creating profound changes on healthcare delivery. That's why you see healthcare systems now instead of healthcare, just hospitals, because it's too hard to compete as a standalone organization. You have to have integrated all of your providers too. So that's a part of this holistic marketing. Integrate the providers, the distributors or suppliers with your healthcare delivery people, that's the hospitals and any other urgent care facilities that you have, integrate them together, and you now have a strategy that helps you attract a larger target market and identify the need in the community and deliver it in the most effective way. So this marketing strategic process is very similar to what we just talked about in the organization strategic process, but the difference is the organization looks at their particular piece of the strategic plan. So you'll see on page 123, there's a figure on the framework for the development of the marketing plan that helps you develop the strategy. And I wrote down here, I mentioned that in today's world, like I said before, we had a marketing department in the past. Now organizations have a chief marketing officer, which is completely different, which means that there's a vice president of marketing for the entire organization, which shows you the extent to which marketing has changed. So we're going to move on here to target marketing, and then go through the marketing mix, and that'll be it for this lecture. So let me quickly move through that. Marketing isn't just a management function. Marketing is a total organization orientation. So that's what holistic marketing is about. And in order to do that, we have managers have to understand marketing management, and the text calls it the art and science of selecting target markets and creating, communicating, and delivering value to selected consumers in a manner that's sustainable and differentiated from the competition. That is on page 124. That's key to the marketing manager's job. So what is segmentation, targeting, and positioning? So a market is a diverse group of organizations or individuals who have disparate needs for products and services. Market segmentation is the process of participating in that market and into groups of consumers with similar needs. So you'll have a big segment of people that have needs, and I'll again go back to the baby boomer example. Baby boomers have similar needs and characteristics. We're somewhere between, I think it's 55 and 65. We are at a particular point in our life where we're thinking about retirement, or we did extensive planning for retirement. We're visiting our physicians more often, whereas we never saw them before. Now it seems like we see them all the time. We have similar healthcare issues and needs. That's a segment, but not every baby boomer looks exactly the same. Some baby boomers have different needs in regards to healthcare because maybe they have chronic conditions. Maybe they have a specific chronic condition like diabetes or heart failure. Maybe they are baby boomers who are still working instead of retired. So there's different targets. So segmentation is usually geography, demographics, and psychographics, and that enables an organization to design distinct marketing strategies for those segments. And then the target market consists of a more narrowly defined group of consumers with relatively similar needs and wants. So that, and again, baby boomer, that could be all the baby boomers that need hip replacements. That's it. That's the specific target market. All the baby boomers who need hip replacements. More narrowly defined market. Managers, another example is the manager at a long-term care facility might identify their target market as families with elderly relatives, those with chronic mental or physical conditions. So now we're looking at families who might make decisions for those people. If you go to 6.1, I see, 6.1, where's 6.1? Oh, page 126. If you look at the table on 6.1, you're going to see healthcare segmentations the variables and some examples of those, list the demographics, the geographic, et cetera. And it tells you what the variables might be, and then it gives you some examples. Really good chart for your group case study that will help you identify that segmentation and targeting. So that's a really brief review, but in my experience in marketing and in teaching marketing for businesses as well as healthcare, that is the most important thing a marketing manager can determine first, because you don't want to spend your money advertising to the masses when all you really need to do is identify specific target markets and zero in on those folks, develop relationships with them, identify what's the best way to communicate with them, and the best way to bring them into your facility, attract them to your facility. What's the next thing you need to look at is the positioning. Once you've identified the target, the segments and the specific target markets, then you want to position the service in the mind of the consumer. This isn't a physical positioning, this is a mental positioning. What do you want to tell them about your product that's specific, that will attract them to come talk to you? And how will you get them to do that? You position the product or service apart from the competition. The smart marketer does not mention the competition. They just talk about their features and benefits versus others, and talks about the benefits that will work. And you also do it using some branding, which are images, colors, logos, slogans, those kinds of things. You want to differentiate that in the mind of the consumer, give them something to remember you by. Lehigh Valley Hospital Network has that little blue and greenish circle that they use. Now that little logo now appears on all of their provider signs outside of their practices, as well as on the hospital and pretty much every marketing thing that you see, whether it be tangible or intangible. Traditionally, marketing strategies and campaigns have started with segmentation, followed by targeting, positioning. However, connectivity, personal relationships with the consumer is now the biggest game changer in history. Digital marketing has changed that. Even baby boomers use Facebook. So we can connect with all target markets through digital marketing. Everybody has a cell phone today. So it's important that we use those tools to connect with consumers. That's why we have patient portals, so that we can talk to them through the patient portal, make their information available, and develop a relationship. So if I haven't said the word relationship or emphasized that enough, that's one of the key drivers in marketing, healthcare marketing today, developing personal relationships with your consumers. I talked earlier about insurance influence consumer buyer behavior. Smart marketers use that in insurance. They use it as leverage to help attract consumers with particular types of insurance, and identifying those people and providing a service that is paid for by their insurance, no matter what type of insurance they have. Briefly, I want to mention the marketing mix. That is, what is it that you actually promote and how do you do it? We used to call it the 4 Ps: product, price, promotion, and place. Now we look at, according to Kotler, who is a guru of marketing, he looks at co-creation, currency, communal activation, and conversation, which means we create a product or service for the consumer. We communicate with them on a regular basis. Communal activity is the ability of individuals referring and engaging other potential consumers. Facebook, word of mouth, Twitter, we talk to each other. Most of us, before we have any kind of big procedure, we'll talk to somebody about a knee replacement. Oh, you had a knee replacement. Who did you go to? So it's important that we connect with consumers in these different ways, so that consumers feel comfortable with us before they actually come. That's a key driver, getting the consumer to feel more comfortable. If you look at page 129, you'll see the customer decision-making path in what they call the connectivity area. So you'll see how consumers make that decision based on the fact that we're connected through digital marketing. Okay. Ethics and social responsibility is very key in healthcare marketing, especially since there are a lot of providers and organizations who still aren't all that thrilled with it, but they've been forced into it by the market and by the competition. So we need to be ethical in our advertisement. We cannot use patient information without their permission. You'll see commercials for cancer survivors. Clearly, they have their permission to put them on television because they're doing a commercial for Box Chase or something, but you can't use their examples and stories in an advertisement without their permission. You can't talk about patients in an elevator anymore and other people to hear it. You can't use consumer data with names and birth dates and things like that, diagnosis, all of that is off limits. The way we use consumer information is in a more generic format. And most times hospitals won't even use real patient pictures and things, again, unless they have patient permission. And that's usually when patients have had really good outcomes and they're willing to tell their story. That's all well and good. Again, what they say is limited, but still it's the ethical sides of marketing is very clearly important to the survival of an organization and its reputation. And of course, your reputation as a healthcare manager. So that's my lecture for today, for this week. I hope that helps you with the case study and your reflection paper and any other assignments we have going forward. So thank you for your time and for listening, and I will see you in this week's forum.